Tibet, a land where the earth touches the sky and where the whispers of the wind carry ancient tales of a people who have lived in harmony with the mountains for centuries. A place where every stone, every breath of air holds a story steeped in wisdom, spirituality, and mysticism. But what is the true essence of Tibet? Behind its awe-inspiring monasteries and towering peaks lies a deep and rich history that has shaped not only the lives of its people, but the spiritual landscape of the world. The journey to understanding Tibetan history takes us back thousands of years to the origins of Buddhism in this sacred land. It was here, high in the Himalayas, that the teachings of the Buddha found a sanctuary, preserved in the peaceful rhythms of monastic life and in the silent gaze of the monks who dedicate their lives to seeking enlightenment. Over time, Tibet became a beacon of wisdom, its monasteries brimming with knowledge, and its people living in profound devotion to their spiritual practices. But this history isn't just about peaceful meditation or tranquil prayer. It's about resilience, struggle, and the preservation of a unique culture against all odds. From the spread of Tibetan Buddhism to the challenges faced in maintaining its traditions amidst political and social changes, Tibet's story is one of perseverance and strength. Join me as we uncover the layers of Tibetan history, a journey through time that reveals the heart of a culture and the spirit of a people whose devotion to the teachings of the Buddha has transcended centuries. The secrets of Tibet are waiting to be discovered, and they are more profound and timeless than we could ever imagine. Tibetan Buddhism wasn't a sudden arrival. It was a gradual unfolding, beginning in the 7th century under the visionary leadership of King Songtsen Gampo. His reign marked the beginning of an extraordinary transformation, as he sought not only to strengthen his kingdom, but to unite his people through a shared spiritual foundation. King Songtsen Gampo recognized that Buddhism, with its profound teachings of compassion and wisdom, could offer more than just a religious practice. It could become a guiding force to bring his diverse kingdom together. To solidify this spiritual vision, Songtsen Gampo arranged strategic marriages with Buddhist princesses from Nepal and China, creating an unbreakable bond between Tibet and the world of Buddhism. These unions were not just political, they were the catalysts for the introduction of sacred Buddhist teachings into Tibet. Through these royal alliances, Tibetan culture began to absorb the values and rituals of Buddhism, laying the foundation for what would become a powerful spiritual movement. But how did Buddhism take root in such a remote and isolated land? Tibet, surrounded by towering mountains and harsh landscapes, was always a place where tradition and self-reliance were paramount. The wisdom of Buddhism, however, found fertile ground here, deep in the hearts of the Tibetan people. Over the years, it would grow and evolve, shaping not only the spiritual life of Tibet, but influencing the way Tibetans viewed the world, life, and death itself. This wasn't just the spread of a religion, it was the beginning of a spiritual awakening that would resonate for centuries. Let's take a deeper look into how Tibetan Buddhism took shape in this unique land, how it flourished despite the challenges, and how it continues to shape the soul of Tibet today. As Buddhism began its spread across Tibet, it wasn't always welcomed with open arms. The land was rich with its own ancient traditions and beliefs, deeply rooted in the Bon religion, a spiritual practice that predated Buddhism in the region. Bon was more than just a religion. It was an integral part of Tibetan identity, with its own rituals, deities, and worldview. The arrival of Buddhism, with its foreign doctrines and practices, was seen as a challenge to these age-old traditions, and many resisted this new way of thinking. Yet, despite this resistance, Buddhism's message of peace, wisdom, and compassion began to resonate with the Tibetan people. It wasn't just a religion. It offered a path to inner peace, a way to overcome suffering, and a vision of a world founded on love and understanding. These teachings, grounded in the timeless wisdom of the Buddha, gradually found their way into the hearts of the Tibetan people. One of the key turning points in this journey was the work of Tibetan scholars and monks who dedicated their lives to translating sacred Buddhist texts into the Tibetan language. This was no simple task. It was a labor of love and devotion. Through their tireless efforts, the Dharma, Buddha's teachings, began to take root in Tibetan soil, not as a foreign influence, but as a spiritual treasure that could guide the people toward enlightenment. As Buddhism took hold, Tibet slowly transformed from a land rooted in animism and shamanistic practices into the heart of Buddhist enlightenment. This shift wasn't just a religious transition, it was a cultural revolution that reshaped every aspect of Tibetan life. The monasteries that dotted the landscape became centers of learning, where scholars and monks pondered the mysteries of life, death, and the nature of the mind. The journey of Tibetan Buddhism, from its humble beginnings to becoming a spiritual beacon for the world, was just beginning. It was a journey that would be marked by struggle, resilience, and, ultimately, profound wisdom that would echo across the centuries. One of the most revered figures in Tibetan Buddhism is Padmasambhava, also known as Guru Rinpoche, a name that resonates deeply with Tibetans even to this day. His arrival in Tibet in the 8th century is surrounded by a sense of the miraculous. His story is not only one of spiritual greatness, but one of overcoming incredible challenges to lay the foundation for Tibetan Buddhism. Guru Rinpoche is often credited with bringing Vajrayana Buddhism to Tibet, a path that would become central to Tibetan spiritual practice. But his role in Tibet's Buddhist history goes far beyond being a mere teacher. When he first arrived, Tibet was a land filled with fierce opposition, both from local spiritual practices like Bon and from hostile forces, both human and supernatural. These obstacles were not easily overcome, but Padmasambhava was a figure of immense power and wisdom. He is said to have subdued malevolent spirits and demons, transforming them into protectors of the Dharma, ensuring that Buddhism would not only survive in Tibet, but thrive. His ability to integrate the ancient Tibetan beliefs with the teachings of Buddhism became one of his greatest contributions, and it was through this synthesis that he helped the new religion find a lasting place in Tibetan society. Guru Rinpoche also established the first Buddhist monasteries in Tibet, turning sacred spaces into centers of learning and meditation. These monasteries became the heart of Tibetan Buddhism, nurturing generations of monks and scholars who would carry the teachings forward for centuries. His influence didn't end with his physical presence. His teachings continue to guide millions, offering a path of wisdom, compassion, and spiritual realization. The legend of Padmasambhava is embedded deeply in Tibetan culture. His image, often depicted with a serene yet powerful presence, remains a symbol of spiritual strength and transformation. Today, his teachings continue to inspire those on the path to enlightenment, reminding us that even in the face of adversity, the light of wisdom and compassion can illuminate the darkest of paths. The relationship between Tibet and India has always been one of deep and lasting influence, rooted in a shared spiritual connection that spans centuries. For Tibetans, India was not just a neighboring country, it was the birthplace of the Buddha, the land where the teachings of wisdom and compassion first took root. As Tibetan monks and scholars journeyed to India in search of deeper knowledge, they encountered some of the most brilliant minds in Buddhist history, scholars and masters who would profoundly shape the course of Tibetan Buddhism. Among these great figures were masters like Shantarakshita and Atisha, who played pivotal roles in introducing and refining Buddhist practices in Tibet. Shantarakshita, known for his profound understanding of philosophy and meditation, was instrumental in establishing the foundations of Tibetan monastic life. His teachings emphasized the importance of both wisdom and compassion as inseparable elements of spiritual practice. Shantarakshita's efforts to lay the groundwork for a system of monastic education helped guide Tibetan Buddhism toward the structured, methodical tradition we know today. Atisha, a renowned scholar and meditation master from India, also left an indelible mark on Tibetan Buddhism. His teachings, particularly on the path of bodhicitta, the wish to attain enlightenment for the sake of all beings, became central to Tibetan spiritual life. Atisha's unique ability to blend the study of Buddhist texts with deep meditation made his contributions essential in shaping the practices that define Tibetan Buddhism today. Through their guidance, Tibetan monks and scholars began to cultivate a profound understanding of meditation, ethics, and wisdom. They returned to Tibet not just with knowledge, but with the tools to establish a robust tradition of spiritual practice that would endure for generations. These exchanges between Tibet and India were more than just intellectual, they were transformative. They were the seeds from which the unique and rich tradition of Tibetan Buddhism would grow. The relationship between these two lands, woven together through the shared pursuit of enlightenment, continues to resonate in every corner of Tibetan culture. Today, the teachings of masters like Shantarakshita and Atisha continue to guide countless practitioners, ensuring that the wisdom they imparted will never fade, but remain a beacon for all who seek the path of enlightenment. In Tibet, monasteries are far more than just places of worship. They are the beating heart of Tibetan Buddhism, where the essence of the tradition comes to life. These sacred spaces are not only centers for prayer and meditation, but also vital hubs of education, culture, and spiritual growth. The Tibetan monasteries stand as living, breathing institutions that preserve the wisdom and teachings of the Buddha, offering a refuge for those seeking to deepen their understanding of the world and themselves. For centuries, monks and nuns in Tibet have devoted their entire lives to the study of ancient Buddhist texts. They immerse themselves in the teachings of the Dharma, often dedicating years to memorizing scriptures, reflecting on their meanings, and engaging in profound meditation practices. Through these practices, they strive to awaken wisdom, compassion, and insight, the core pillars of Tibetan Buddhism. But the work that takes place within these monasteries goes beyond individual enlightenment. It's about preserving a rich cultural heritage, ensuring that the teachings of the Buddha are passed down through generations. Monasteries like these have long been the crucibles from which Tibetan Buddhism has flourished and spread to the world. From these hallowed halls, the teachings of Tibetan Buddhism traveled beyond the mountains of Tibet, touching lives around the globe. The monks and nuns, through their commitment to study and meditation, became spiritual guides, offering a deep sense of peace, clarity, and insight into the nature of existence. Their wisdom didn't remain confined to the walls of their monasteries. It reached across borders and cultures, offering a universal message of compassion, understanding, and the path to inner peace. Tibetan monasteries stand today as symbols of the enduring legacy of Tibetan Buddhism, a tradition that has, for over 1,000 years, provided profound teachings on the nature of the mind, the heart, and the interconnectedness of all beings. They are not just places of learning, they are living manifestations of the wisdom of the past, still guiding people on the path to enlightenment. When we think of Tibetan Buddhism, the figure of the Dalai Lama stands out as one of the most revered and beloved leaders in the tradition. The Dalai Lama is not just a spiritual figure, he is the embodiment of compassion, wisdom, and the teachings of the Buddha. His presence in Tibetan Buddhism represents a deep commitment to peace, kindness, and the well-being of all living beings. The history of the Dalai Lama dates back to the 14th century, when the title was first given to the monk, who would later be recognized as the first Dalai Lama. But it was not until the 17th century that the role of the Dalai Lama evolved into something more profound. During this time, the Dalai Lama became not just a spiritual leader, but also the central political figure of Tibet. As the spiritual head of Tibetan Buddhism, the Dalai Lama provided guidance on meditation, ethics, and the path to enlightenment. But as the political leader, he also played a crucial role in uniting Tibet and ensuring the stability and preservation of Tibetan culture. Today, the Dalai Lama continues to inspire millions of people around the world. His teachings on compassion, kindness, and non-violence are not just for Tibetans, but for all humanity. His message transcends borders, cultures, and religions, offering a universal path to peace and understanding. He urges people to find inner peace through kindness and mindfulness, to live in harmony with others, and to always seek the well-being of all beings, regardless of race, religion, or background. The Dalai Lama's journey, from a young spiritual leader to a global symbol of peace, is a testament to the power of wisdom and compassion in shaping the world. His legacy, rooted in Tibetan history, continues to guide millions, offering hope, healing, and the promise of a more compassionate world. The path to enlightenment in Tibetan Buddhism is not an easy one. It is a profound journey that requires deep patience, unwavering dedication, and constant mindfulness. Unlike quick fixes or instant answers, Tibetan Buddhism teaches that true enlightenment is a gradual process, one that unfolds through consistent practice and inner transformation. It's a path that calls on us to examine our thoughts, our emotions, and our actions, and to transform them into tools of wisdom, compassion, and peace. At the core of Tibetan Buddhism lies the powerful concept of transformation. It's about more than simply understanding spiritual teachings. It's about transforming the very nature of who we are. This transformation begins in the mind, through cultivating awareness, clearing away the clouds of delusion, and seeing things as they truly are. It moves outward, shaping our perceptions, actions, and interactions with the world around us. The journey is as much about inward change as it is about how we express that change in our daily lives. Meditation is one of the primary tools used in this transformation. It's through meditation that we come face to face with the nature of our minds, learning to quiet the noise and distractions, and to find the clarity that allows us to see the truth of existence. Mantra chanting is another powerful practice, using the repetition of sacred words to focus the mind and invoke a sense of peace and connection to the divine. Rituals, too, play a significant role in Tibetan Buddhism, acting as a means to purify negative karma, connect with enlightened beings, and create a sacred space for spiritual growth. Each of these practices, whether it's meditation, chanting, or ritual, serves as a tool for awakening. They are not separate tasks, but interconnected parts of a larger spiritual process that helps us move closer to our true nature, the essence of enlightenment that exists within each of us. It's a journey that may take a lifetime, but it's a journey that transforms us, bringing us to a place of deep wisdom, compassion, and ultimately, peace. Tibetan Buddhism's path to enlightenment is not about reaching a destination, but about the ongoing process of transformation. It's a path that asks us to be present, to be patient with ourselves, and to embrace the gradual unfolding of wisdom and compassion. Tibetan Buddhism's influence stretches far beyond the majestic peaks of the Himalayas, touching hearts and minds across the globe. Its teachings, rich in wisdom and compassion, have resonated with people from every culture and background. For centuries, Tibet remained isolated, guarding its profound spiritual practices and teachings. But as the world began to change, Tibetan Buddhism found its way out of the mountains and into the wider world. The 20th century marked a pivotal moment in this journey, when Westerners began discovering the deep spiritual insights of Tibetan Buddhism. Attracted by its holistic approach to life, emphasizing meditation, mindfulness, and compassion, many people sought to explore this ancient tradition. What they found was not just a set of religious practices, but a path to inner peace and self-realization that transcended cultural boundaries. The teachings of Tibetan Buddhism, with their emphasis on transforming the mind and awakening the heart, spoke directly to the human experience in profound ways. Today, Tibetan Buddhism has become a global movement. Tibetan Buddhist centers and monasteries are now found in cities around the world, from bustling metropolises to peaceful retreats. These centers offer more than just a place of worship. They serve as hubs for spiritual growth, providing teachings, retreats, and meditation practices that help people navigate the challenges of modern life. Whether seeking peace of mind, emotional healing, or a deeper understanding of the nature of existence, people of all walks of life are turning to Tibetan Buddhism to find solace and wisdom. Through these centers, the ancient wisdom of Tibet continues to inspire and transform lives. The timeless practices of Tibetan Buddhism are helping individuals find clarity in a chaotic world, offering a way to cultivate inner peace, compassion, and wisdom. The global spread of Tibetan Buddhism is a testament to its enduring relevance, providing a beacon of light for those on a spiritual journey, no matter where they come from or where they are headed. Tibetan art is not just visually stunning, it carries a deep spiritual essence that connects the viewer to the heart of Tibetan Buddhism. Each brushstroke, every vibrant color, and every intricate detail in Tibetan art is carefully crafted with a purpose, to guide the mind toward meditation and enlightenment. Art in Tibet is not merely an aesthetic experience, it is a transformative tool, inviting both the artist and the observer to embark on a journey of spiritual awakening. Among the most profound forms of Tibetan art are mandalas and thangka paintings. Mandalas, often seen as complex geometric patterns, represent the universe in its entirety. They serve as sacred diagrams, acting as focal points for meditation. By contemplating a mandala, practitioners can visualize the path to spiritual liberation, seeing the journey from the material world to the ultimate state of enlightenment. Each color, shape, and symbol is meticulously chosen to represent a particular quality, teaching, or deity. Thangkas, intricate paintings of Buddhist deities, bodhisattvas, and spiritual symbols, also carry profound significance. These works are not just decorative, they are designed to evoke the divine and inspire reflection on one's spiritual path. Each figure in a thangka has a specific meaning, representing aspects of the Buddha's teachings, such as compassion, wisdom, or protection. By meditating on these images, practitioners are reminded of the qualities they seek to embody and the wisdom they aim to cultivate. These sacred paintings offer a direct, visual connection to the teachings of Tibetan Buddhism, helping to focus the mind and spirit. Tibetan art is a visual manifestation of the profound wisdom found in Buddhist teachings. It's a call to pause, to reflect, and to engage with the deeper aspects of life and existence. The intricate imagery and sacred symbolism embedded in these works remind us that each moment of our lives is an opportunity to awaken, to connect with the divine, and to walk the path toward liberation. In this way, Tibetan art is not just something to be admired, it is a guide, a teacher, and a constant invitation to embark on our own spiritual journey. Tibet's spiritual legacy is one of the richest in the world, filled with profound teachings and timeless wisdom. However, the political history of Tibet has been fraught with struggles and hardships. One of the most pivotal moments in Tibet's history came in 1959, when Chinese forces invaded the region, forcing Tibet to confront an uncertain future. This invasion marked the beginning of a new era for Tibet, one defined by resistance, resilience, and an unyielding desire for freedom. The invasion led to the exile of the Dalai Lama, Tibet's spiritual and political leader, who fled to India to escape the Chinese military occupation. This tragic event signified not only a loss for the Tibetan people, but also a turning point in their fight for autonomy. The Dalai Lama's exile marked the start of a long, ongoing struggle for freedom, as Tibetans fought to preserve their culture, religion, and way of life in the face of foreign occupation. Since then, Tibet has remained under Chinese control, but the Tibetan people's spirit has never been broken. Despite the hardships they have faced, they continue to hold on to their deep cultural and spiritual roots. Tibetan Buddhism, with its teachings of compassion, resilience, and inner peace, has remained a beacon of hope, offering strength to those who continue to resist oppression. Tibetans, both within Tibet and in exile, continue to fight for the freedom of their land and the preservation of their identity. Today, the dream of a free Tibet still lives on in the hearts of its people. Though the path to freedom remains uncertain, the hope for a future where Tibetans can live in peace and self-determination remains steadfast. The Tibetan struggle is not just a political one, it is a fight to preserve a unique culture, a way of life, and a spiritual tradition that has endured for over 1,000 years. The resilience of the Tibetan people, their unwavering faith, and their commitment to the ideals of peace and compassion continue to inspire the world. As we gaze into the future of Tibetan Buddhism, we witness a tradition that is both timeless and ever-evolving. Despite the immense challenges Tibet has faced over the years, including political turmoil and cultural suppression, Tibetan Buddhism remains a powerful force for good in the world. Its teachings of compassion, mindfulness, and wisdom continue to offer solace and guidance to millions of people, not just in Tibet, but across the globe. In a world that is constantly changing, Tibetan Buddhism remains a steady beacon of light, reminding us of the importance of inner peace and the interconnectedness of all beings. Yet, the future of Tibetan Buddhism faces uncertainty. As the world becomes increasingly globalized and modernized, we must ask ourselves, how can we protect and preserve this ancient tradition in such a rapidly changing environment? Tibetan Buddhism is more than just a religion. It is a way of life, a deep spiritual practice that offers profound insight into the human experience. Its teachings are a gift, one that has the power to transform lives and guide people toward enlightenment. But these teachings, along with the rich cultural and spiritual heritage of Tibet, are fragile. The question we must confront is how we can ensure that Tibetan Buddhism continues to thrive for future generations. It's not just the responsibility of Tibetans, it's the responsibility of all of us who value peace, wisdom, and compassion. Whether through supporting Tibetan Buddhist centers, preserving Tibetan culture, or simply embracing the teachings in our own lives, we each have a role to play in keeping this tradition alive. The flame of Tibetan Buddhism must continue to burn brightly, not just as a spiritual practice, but as a living, breathing tradition that can adapt to the challenges of the modern world. By doing so, we ensure that future generations will have the opportunity to benefit from its timeless wisdom, just as we have. It is a legacy worth protecting, a path worth walking, and a truth worth sharing. Let us all be stewards of this profound tradition, ensuring that its light never fades.